Pleasanton houses levels 1 through 6 inmates, mostly because a lot of the women are level 6.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Becoming the King of Pot. My name's Todd Denkin, and with me, as always, my cousin, the King of Pot, Bruce Perlowin. Bruce, how's it going?
It's going great, and I'm very excited, as always, because we're again having my good friend Stephen Kalish to finish the amazing story of Stephen Kalish, the biggest marijuana smuggler, or one of the biggest marijuana smugglers in the history of America. Certainly the guy that brought in the biggest load at one time.
Yes, that is true. Stephen, welcome back.
Yeah, it's a pleasure
You
to
have
be back.
so many great stories that we're doing episode after episode after episode, but it's all compelling, wonderful stuff that's I just sit here and go, you did what? Okay, so we're going to pick that up in just a second, but before you do, guys, if you're seeing us for the first time or the 100th time, thanks for watching, and please hit that subscribe button and subscribe to us here on the YouTube platform and wherever you watch or listen to our podcast. That helps us here at Becoming the King of Pots, and we appreciate the fact that you guys are doing that for us. So, like we mentioned, Stephen Kalish, the gentleman smuggler, back with us yet again, so we can really get to the bottom of how he ended up in Pleasanton with his buddy Bruce, where all the women were. So, so you're a big hero in Texarkana, right? You're getting everybody pizza every month, and you got blockbuster movies. You got a snow cone machine. I tell you what, it doesn't even sound like prison. It sounds like summer camp.
Well, no, it was prison, all right. I mean,
Okay.
there weren't any conjugal visits there. But
Yeah.
Bruce left, so I'm in Texarkana. I'm expecting to make it to the federal prison camp that's located right outside the main prison, and I
Yes.
go in for my quarterly review, and they're telling me what a model prisoner I am and how I meet all the qualifications. But like caveat, there's a there's a federal indictment out of Tampa that we just received, indicting you on continuing criminal enterprise charges out of
Uh-oh.
Tampa, Florida, and we
Right.
can't send you to camp. Oh, and they said there's also this small issue of your 300,000 pound importation into Louisiana that the U.S. attorney's called about, and they don't want us sending you to a prison camp because the minute I got to camp, I was on my way back to Panama. They handed me this indictment, and I was expecting it. I had no contact with my partner Lee Rich or any of my friends. I had married my girlfriend, whose father was a retired Secret Service agent. And I married her, one, because I loved her, and two, to keep the feds from compelling her to testify against me.
Ah,
You
interesting.
know, as my wife, she couldn't be compelled to testify against me.
Right.
So I go back to my bunk at Texarkana and I start reading this indictment. And apparently, after my arrest, Lee Rich has decided, instead of taking my advice and going back to the Caymans and telling Julio Nasser to find other buyers for the £1,000,000, he decides he's going to try his own importation.
At this point, with the audience needs to understand, Steve has put down what, millions of dollars on this £1,000,000 load. Spent what I think you said in your book, which everybody needs to read. You had invested $12 million up to this point on this £1,000,000 load.
$10 million deposit, $10 a pound on £1,000,000. We had spent well over $2 million just on the tugging barge, and 500,000 deposit for the offload site, 300,000 on conveyors, and another $1 million in miscellaneous expenses.
Right. Wow. So
Yeah.
you're 14, $15 million into this gig and you're in prison.
Yeah, I am. And I'm reading this indictment, and apparently, and I'm laughing. It's actually hysterical because apparently, after I was arrested, my crew didn't have my leadership or my guidance, and some of Michael Vogel's crew who had come to work for me were left out in the cold. Well, one of them in particular, was Clinton Shine Anderson, who ran all our voice stress analyzer tests. He had a machine in a box that would test the stress in your voice as you were asked questions. Are you an FBI? Are you a federal informant? You know,
Wait,
and
so
it
he
was
had he was a guy in your organization that helped you learn how to do that better? Or why would you have a guy like that?
to run a voice stress test on every member of our organization. And if you refused to take the test, you couldn't work for us.
Ah, interesting. So you just
And
wanted to weed out the liars.
Yeah. And I learned that, in 1980 in Galveston, in Freeport, Texas, when the manager of the marina refused to take a voice stress test. And
and let me explain why that's sort of important. Let's say we have a big organization. Steve did, I did, and one of his guys. They're always working, and one of his guys gets a load from somebody else that Steve doesn't know about and gets busted. And they arrest him. The first thing they do is they try and flip him and make him an informant, and that happens, and he gets out of jail. And Steve doesn't know that one of his crew members got busted as now an informant. So this stress test analyzer asks them, "Are you an informant?" Even from your own group. You have to do it over and over and over again because you never know
Yeah,
when they're always working and they get
sure.
busted. And that's a very common thing that the feds try and do is flip them and send them back into the organization, which, by the way,
And
is exactly
and
what's about to happen, which he'll
right,
explain.
right, right. I was
See,
just gonna say, did you ever catch anybody, who was, an informant of
um,
any kind?
no, everybody everybody took the test, and um, we detected lies, but not about being federal informants or
Right.
like, did you ever steal any money? That was one of the questions, and some, or did you ever steal any pot? But back to my point. So um, the person that was running these tests knew everybody in the organizations, everybody in my organization, in Lee's organization, in Michael's organization. He had been to all our offload sites, and unfortunately, after my arrest, he he got hooked up with a biker gang up in Detroit, Michigan, and got into some trouble and got in a fight with one of his friends and got shot in the leg or something. And of course, he said Michael Vogel tried to have him killed over the bulldog op, but that was nonsense. So Clinton Anderson, aka Shine, who knows everybody in all their organizations, get shot, has gotten himself in trouble in Detroit, and one of the members of the biker gang is an undercover agent for the FBI named Ned Timmons. So Ned Timmons talked Shine into introducing him to Lee Rich. So
Your partner.
my partner. Now I'm in custody. Well, he's supposed to be in the Cayman Islands, enjoying his millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And instead he's trying to bring in part of this million pounds we have in Barranquilla. Well, Shine brings Ned Timmons, an undercover FBI agent, down to Tampa, Florida. And Lee Rich hires him as his head of security.
Uh-oh.
So now, and I'm reading all this in the indictment,
Right.
right?
Oy.
On my bunk detector can, and I can't help but laugh about it. I mean, who hires a undercover FBI agent as your head of security? So for the next 18,
Clearly, they didn't give him the voice test.
oh, they were running voice tests, but it was being run by a FBI agent who had in turn bugged all their phones, put transponders
shit.
on all their cars,
Oh, man.
tagged them all. So I get this indictment. They ship me back over to Hillsborough County to be arraigned on the CCE count, and I'm facing life in prison plus 230 years.
Oh, my God.
Not counting the racketeering charges out of the Eastern District of Texas and
Right.
and the charges out of Louisiana for the 300,000 pounds. I mean, it's
Right. You're busy doing your 18 months for the Texas deal, right?
so. When I get back to Hillsborough County, which I had started to mention earlier, they take me to my pod, and lo and behold, there's two people in the pod that I know, Lee Rich and J.D. Wilson, who I've known since I was 15 years old, and Lee Rich, who is my partner.
Yeah.
Now, was not happy to see either one of them because after reading the indictment and knowing that they persisted in pursuing their smuggling ventures after I warned them about the task force in Tampa, really pissed me off.
Yeah, I bet.
And they had hundreds of hours of tapes, video. They busted 185,000 pounds off of Jacksonville, Florida. It was all a setup. And I said, guys,
So with all this evidence, with all these tapes, and what happens? I mean, what happens to you? Do you go to court at least? Do you plea this out?
oh
What's
yeah,
going on?
I know. I still got the best attorney in the country. And I
Right.
go, look, guys, I got the ace in the hole. I said, neither one of you have any prior convictions for anything. Lee, you've never been convicted of anything. JD, you have a clean record. I said, I'm out on a federal appeal bond, smuggling well over 1 million pounds of pot. I'm going to get a life sentence with no parole. I said, the only opportunity to mitigate any of this is for me to see if the government has any interest in Manuel Noriega, the de facto leader of Panama.
Ah.
And they go, no, we're not going to cooperate. And I go, okay, we'll all go to trial. So I have to wire another $500,000 to my attorney, Dick DeGarren, and we go to trial in Tampa, Florida. And there's 3 of us in custody and 8 of us out on appeal, not out on appeal, on bond. And we're all on trial together.
Right.
And I'm listening, and I've convinced most of the people I know to cooperate with the feds to mitigate their sentences. I don't care if they testify against me or not. I know we're all going to be convicted. I've been
Yeah.
through trials. I've been found not guilty. I've been found guilty. I just know. I know how to read a jury. I know the jury that we're facing is not looking good. So, after about 4 weeks, I'm like having to turn my head to keep from laughing at some of the testimony because it was so bad. I mean,
Like what's an example?
um, about Ned Timmons testifying about Lee Rich and J.D. Wilson snorting cocaine and talking about the Bulldog Up and talking about Julio Nasser, or one of the John Urena who worked for Chick Fordna talking about the 1,000-pound kilo importation, or Shelley, one of our pilots, testifying about flying us to the Cayman Islands on dozens of occasions.
Yeah.
All our pilots testifying.
And you're laughing because you're just reliving it, and it was just kind of your
Because
life just on trial.
no, I'm laughing because I know we're already convicted. It is
Ah,
a no-brainer.
got it.
There's 65 witnesses, and we're at probably, I don't know, 45 or 50. So we go back to our Hillsborough County Jail, and I sit Lee and JD down, and I go, look, guys, I'm done. I said, I am not gonna spend the rest of my life in prison. I'm hiring some high-powered attorneys out of Washington, D.C. to come down and meet with me and meet with Main Justice in Washington, D.C. to see what interest they have in General Noriega. I said, you guys can stay, go, do whatever the fuck you want. I said, I'm going to plead not guilty and offer him Noriega, which I do. And suddenly I'm no longer in the trial. And
Yeah.
the judge tells the jury not to read anything into the fact that I'm no longer a defendant in the trial.
So the government is interested now suddenly in Noriega.
No, as a matter of fact, they're not.
They're not. So what?
Fuck
So
no.
what's happening?
Noriega's, so they're interested in Noriega continuing to smuggle arms to the Contras in Nicaragua and and the freedom fighters in El Salvador. So they don't want to hear about Noriega. Literally,
Right.
do not want to
In
hear
comes Oliver North saying, "Hey, I can get you some arms."
Oliver
Right?
North, the whole Iran Contra affair.
Yeah.
I'm tied up in all of that.
Oh
So
my goodness.
all the government in Tampa, all they want to know is about my assets and what I'm willing to turn over. And the amount of assets determines the the length of sentence that they'll
Uh,
recommend to the federal judge.
so the
And
more you give up, the less time, or the more you give up, the more time.
the more I give up, the less time.
And
And the
I'll inject it there, because again, I'm reading all the smuggling books which are up there
I'm
for
so glad you do that. Yeah, that's really helpful when you do that. You point
Yeah.
to them, right?
I mean, that's a lot of reading. Every single one of those.
Right.
They were
Mine
all the
are
smugglers are
all
telling
in
their
my
stories.
office, not in
Yeah.
my
Mine are
wife's.
down here. Mine are down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So, but that was a big friggin' thing with the government was seizing assets. I mean,
sure.
they were like, it must have been, I don't know, Operation Jackpot. I sort of started that to go after the smugglers by going after their assets. Like Steve said last podcast, he gave these guys, $250,000, $500,000 and said, don't go spend it. Well, that's exactly how the government started tracking people when they couldn't catch us red-handed. They said, who's buying cars and houses and boats, that really doesn't
Planes.
have,
Yeah.
planes, that doesn't have a job to support that. So they were tracking that, and then getting those assets became this like wild, like a mad dog, foaming at the mouth to get a car, a hat, anything, I mean, not just the houses and the yachts and the airplanes, and the dollars and the bank accounts. In my case, 16 million bucks, which is not a lot compared to guys like Steve, but all over the world. That's what they wanted. They wanted the assets. So just like when I pled guilty, I gave them my assets. That was a big bargaining chip, and that's what they wanted for some bizarro reasons. I don't know if it's the same now. I don't think so. But
Maybe it's for commendation. So what were the assets that you gave up, Bruce? And then we'll hear what Steve gave up.
okay, well, I gave up my house in the Ukiah, which I spent $3 million building. I gave up my airplane. I gave up a whole fleet of boats. I gave up the 1,000-foot concrete pier. I gave up 60 lash barges, houseboat, hatch covers. They wanted these friggin' steel hatch covers that I had, that one, the 30 by 60 steel hatch covers that went on top of my barges. And I had them in my backup dock with the guy there just cutting them, welding them, just, we call him Welder Bill, just as a front for why we're at that backup dock. He was like Steve, watching the marine traffic, seeing who's come by, watching if the police cars come by, and as an excuse to be there, especially on the nights that we were operating, we had to have him there. And what else? A lot of my electronic. No, they didn't get the electronic equipment. My guys got a lot of my, my speedboats. My guys got my trucks. My guys got
What about cash?
$16 million in cash all around the world. They did get one stash of $250,000 in silver coins. They missed the other $250,000 that I had it in Berkeley House, but they got the ones up in Ukiah. All that stuff up in Ukiah.
Any of your brothers or any family member lose any assets?
No, they didn't have the kind of money I had. And
Right, but like you mentioned you were running money through the jewelry store, but you got to keep the jewelry store and all that.
yeah, that was small money. That wasn't millions of dollars. That was maybe hundreds of thousands, but not millions, and not I mean, the boats were $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 each. I had 90 of them.
Yeah, right.
So that was my assets.
Steven, so Bruce had a piddly 16 million puff, big deal, right? Wow, 16
It's a lot more than I gave up.
Whoa. Right, he thinks he's a big shot. What did you give up, Mr. Kalish?
I definitely didn't give up 15 million. I did give up millions. Gave up a letter of credit for $3 million drawn on BCCI. Gave up a lot of gold, probably $1 million worth of gold. Gave up $1 million, $1.5 million home in Tampa, Florida. Several Mercedes.
What about all your planes?
No.
He was sneaky. Tell how sneaky you were. I read it in the book.
Yes. After I knew all the heat coming down, I knew that our jet was in a hangar at Fort Lauderdale exec. So on a 3-way call through my wife, I patched in the owner of the facility and I said, look, if you can sell my jet today for $1 million cash and wire it to my company, Jet Finance by Panama, you can keep whatever. If you sell it for $2 million, you keep $1 million. So he sold the jet that day,
Oh wow.
literally that day, and wired the money, the $1 million, to my account in Panama. The next day, the feds show up at the hangar with a seizure order for that jet. And they were fucking livid that
Yeah.
the jet had been sold. And the money had been transferred to Panama in a numbered account.
So they couldn't seize it at that point, just go to the guy who bought it and just take it from him?
Nope. And I tried to sell some other things. But after the jet fiasco, they I put up a for sale sign in my Tampa home, and they issued a seizure order the next day.
Oh, that's funny.
So I said, okay. Well, anyway, they got millions of dollars in my Ferrari and my Porsches and Mercedes and all kinds of shit that
Yeah.
I had shipped up from Panama for him, and
What about your
for
house in
that,
Panama? Did you still keep your house in Panama?
but yeah, I eventually sold my house in Panama and kept those funds.
Yeah, nice.
My plea bargain agreement with the feds was I would tell them whatever I'd done, had to tell the truth. If I lied, they could prosecute me for everything. So
Right.
they didn't want to know about Noriega. There was a brief 302 that I did with a couple of agents about my relationship with Noriega, which sent off alarm bells in DC. And never, not for another year and a half, was I asked about Noriega, which
Right.
surprised me. I spent 6 months on a plea bargain agreement, literally, up at
Yeah.
Gilchrist County Jail.
Right.
And I got, for my plea bargain agreement, I got no prosecution by the IRS for unpaid taxes, no family members to be prosecuted for anything. IRS, tax evade, anything. Um, um, and a couple other perks. Oh, I got to keep close to $1 million in cash.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And then how much time were you given, to ride out the rest of the time with that
Well, I
plea
was still facing 20 years,
bargain? Right.
right? No parole.
Yeah.
And and I signed the plea. We signed the plea bargain agreement, and I was up in Gilchrist County, and they bring me down to Tampa. Um, well, first they fly me to Washington D.C. and they debrief me at Main Justice, and they want to know about everything I've done with Noriega. So, I'm in a big conference room with U.S. attorneys and DA agents and the head of the criminal division of Main Justice.
Right.
And concurrently with me meeting in Washington, D.C., Oliver North is meeting in London with Noriega. And I
Okay.
know this is all documented. This is in Oliver North's diary that was seized in the Iran Contra affair.
Yeah. Yeah.
and presented before Senator Kerry's committee. So I don't know any of this. So I tell them all about Noriega. I spend 8 hours debriefing, and they come back and they go, okay, we're done. Where would you like to go? And I go, what do you mean we're done? So I'm like, I look at my two attorneys. I look over at the assistant U.S. attorneys, and they're as dumbfounded as I am.
Yeah.
You know, they don't know what's going on. And I go, look, put me on a jet back to Gilchrist County Jail because I'm running the jail there. And I'm having conjugal visits and I'm eating 5-star meals every day. So the marshals hate me at this, the marshals have always hated me, but they're having to fly me by private jet, back to Gilchrist County Jail. So I go back to Gilchrist for sentencing. I have a sentencing date coming up. So I asked the sheriff to write a letter on my behalf. And he goes, no, I don't write very well. Here's some letterhead. You write the letter and I'll sign it. I still have a copy of this letter.
Nice.
It was a big mistake on my part. So I write a letter. The sheriff signs it. I postmark it on Wednesday morning. It goes out on the Wednesday mail saying, get to the federal judge on Friday. And my sentencing is coming up the following week. So I'm outside Friday night doing my 6-mile run. I'm not locked down ever. And when I'm getting close to the jail, I can see 3 black Crown Victorias stationed at different points around the jail with marshals in them. So I sneak in the jail through the back way and I go to the lieutenant and I tell him, I go, look, I don't know why the U.S. Marshals have your jail staked out, but they do. I'm going back to my cell and I'm going to lock my door. And I'll see you later. Well, I knew what had happened. The federal judge got my letter, and my letter was a 3-page letter that said I had out custody for 18 months. And I'd been a model prisoner and the federal judge, the chief federal judge, Darrell Hodges in the Middle District of Florida, called in the head of the Marshal Service and read him the Riot Act. Why in the hell do you have a flag risk prisoner running a jail up in Gilchrist County? The Marshal's plan was to catch me outside the jail, which then they could charge me for attempted escape
Yeah.
and nullify my plea bargain agreement. Well, they didn't manage to do that. So 10 minutes later, after I've gone back to my cell block, there's actually a picture of my cell. Doesn't look very nice, but there, I closed my cell block door and the marshals they stormed the jail with guns drawn, literally guns drawn, threatening the lieutenant who's sitting at the desk, you know, dumbfounded over why marshals would have guns drawn, demanding the release of Stephen Kalish. Because the way it works is when marshals put a defendant in a county jail, they have to sign over custody to that sheriff. And the sheriff has to sign release of custody back to the Marshal Service. Well, the marshals thought that the sheriff would not sign release of custody back, which was not true. I had not paid. I had not paid the sheriff any money for any of the perks that I had. And I'm laying on my bunk, like this. And I go, "What's up, deputy?" And the marshal looks at me and, no, he goes, don't, he goes, "Shut the fuck up, Kalish." He goes, "Pack your shit. We're taking you to St. Pete and putting you in solitary." And I go, "Why?" And he goes, "You know why?" And don't say another fucking word. So I had my stuff packed up anyway. Well, they take me to St. Pete on a Friday night. St. Petersburg, Florida, which is across the causeway from Tampa.
Yeah.
Tampa St. Pete area. And so I call up the U.S. attorney on Monday morning. And I said, "Look, I don't know what's going on." And he goes, "Well, the marshals are alleging you bribed the sheriff at Gilchrist County, paid him $10,000. And I said, "Bob," I said, "why in the fuck would I bribe anybody after the plea bargain agreement that I got out of
Yeah.
you? You know?" I said, "That's just horseshit. They're making
Yeah.
all that up." He said, "Look, settle down. You're only going to be in there for a few days. Your sentencing is coming up, on a Thursday, I think." So I go in for sentencing and I get sentenced to 14 years without parole. And, and they send me back to, where do they send me? Oh, they, they send me to Gilchrist, not Gilchrist, Pleasanton. And that was one of my stipulations. I want to go to Pleasanton, California, because my wife is living in California and, it's a safe facility for me now
Yeah.
that I'm a cooperating witness. Now,
Right.
Pleasanton houses levels 1 through 6 inmates, mostly because a lot of the women are level 6. Most of the men are levels 1 and 2 and 3. I
And
think I
6 is
was
the hardcore criminal?
no, we were pot smugglers and
No, I'm saying 6? 6 is the hardcore criminals?
yeah, that end up in Levington, in Marion, and now Colorado at the Supermax.
Bruce, what
But
were you?
I was a 3-4, and it used to amaze me because there was a lot of women there that were a 5-6, which is maximum. All right, 3-4 is minimum, 1-2 is minimum, one's a camp. 3-4 is medium, and 5-6 is maximum. And so you had maximum women, but you didn't have any maximum men there. You only had medium. And I would say, what is this? The women can't, you have to put maximum, because they can't climb as fast as the men to get over the barbed wire or the razor wire.
but
So it didn't make any sense. You should have,
it
but
was,
that's the way it was.
yeah, double fence, Constantine razor wire, guard towers, the whole bit.
Yeah.
And all the women that we met that I knew at Pleasanton were level 6s. You know, terrorists, bank robbers, spies, you
And what was
know.
it like when you first got there and you met Bruce and, you saw his whole clique happening, and did you fit
Oh,
right in?
shit. Um, I was like, okay, this isn't as sweet as Gilchrist, but it's pretty nice. I mean, a lot of gorgeous women there. 400 men, 400 women. We're in the foothills of Northern California. You know, it's, it's living in condo-like um, cells. I mean, they lock you down at night, but it was still best I'd ever seen.
Let me
Yeah.
describe something about that.
Yeah.
Okay. When you're in an all single sex prison, all right, men have a body type, which is, straight, right? Pretty much. But women, they have figures, right? And visually, we're wired to be attracted to that figure, a thin waist, big bust, big, wide hips. And when you don't see that, you don't realize how starved you are for just to see that figure because, and you realize that when a woman like a professor or a lady, any lady comes in, a psychologist would come in from outside or the lady from the children's center, you know, not and the psychologist was gorgeous, but the woman that's sick around the children's center, she was just a woman. But just the figure, just seeing
Just
that
a woman.
figure is a feast for the eyes. And I don't know
Right.
what it does. It sets off endorphins or whatever. But when you got that many women, you're in visual heaven. So I'll
Right.
turn
And,
it
and
back to
Steven, you're
Steve.
probably thinking conjugal, schmongical. I got enough girls here.
I was married at the time, and I was committed in a committed relationship.
Yeah.
I still had a walkie. I had a girlfriend that I met while I was there that I spent a lot of time with.
Wait, hold on. Explain what a walkie is.
A walkie is someone you're allowed to hold hands with and walk around the track with in the evening
Right. That's
after you've finished whatever you've tasked with during the day
right.
and you've had dinner and like-minded people, women.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about like-minded. My day was a convicted terrorist, and
Freedom fighter.
freedom fighter. She was. I mean, believed in what she was doing.
Yeah.
Bruce's girlfriend was a, Russian spy.
Yeah.
Liz Chagro, who I knew I knew her by reputation.
Yeah.
And her Jimmy
Did you ever
Chagro.
work with Lee in the old days? Her husband?
No.
I mean, not Lee. Lee was the lawyer that got killed.
Jimmy.
Joe was my roommate. Jimmy.
Joe and Jimmy.
Chagro.
No. No. And we were especially unhappy with him having that federal judge killed. That brought a lot of heat to Texas.
Yeah.
He's going to trial in San Antonio and we're living in Austin, right? It was just brought a lot of heat, unnecessary heat, especially to the whole profession, smugglers in general, because we weren't known as a violent organization at this point. We were pot smugglers. Nobody was
Yeah.
getting shot yet, not in the 70s anyway, or not
Right.
anybody I knew.
Well, once again, Steven, fabulous and fascinating stories. We're out of time again, and I know you have a lot more to talk about. So you're going to have to join us in the next couple of weeks so we can finish off the Steven Kalish Chronicles here on Becoming the King of Pots. That sound cool?
Yeah, redemption would be the final chapter of all this.
Nice.
Well,
Steve and I had a relationship after we got out of prison, a business relationship.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we want to cover some more stuff in Pleasanton, some stories.
Yeah, for sure.
And then what happened after, how we worked together in legitimate business after Pleasanton. And I do want to
Awesome.
get in at some point the true story about Joe Chagra and Jimmy Chagra and the death of Judge Woods that Stephen just referenced.
Yeah.
Because Joe
Yeah.
would always say, the truth will come out one day. And I know the truth because he was my roommate for 5 years. And he told it to me.
Yeah.
And that will
Yeah.
be a cliffhanger for a future episode.
Finally, a real cliffhanger. Bruce 52 2 episodes in, God bless you. You finally got a real cliffhanger.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, Stephen. Thanks again. Make sure you check out Stephen's book, The Gentleman Smuggler. There it is right there. You can. We're gonna have a link to the book in the text area of this video. So click and buy and wake the neighbors, tell the kids, and have them click and buy too. While you're at it, go ahead and subscribe to Becoming the King of Pot on whatever format you are watching this on. His name is Bruce Perlowin. He is the King of Pot. That other handsome dude, that's Steve Kalish. He is the Gentleman Smuggler. My name's Todd Denkin, and this is Becoming the King of Pot. We'll see you next time.